Okay, and we're live with episode 5 of Cosplay Photo Critique. Um, Sorry for the delay between episodes, guys. Life happened, and I I wasn't able to set anything up pretty much between last episode and now. I was hoping to kind of be on a once a month schedule, and we kind of totally missed that. We missed what was the last stream was in late September, and we missed all of October and November, but we'll ignore that. Um, those are generally quieter months for cosplay photography, anyways. So, um, yeah. Hopefully we'll be back on a bit more of a normal cadence, and maybe I don't. We'll see with holidays. I don't know, but I'm thinking of maybe trying to get another episode out this month to make up for it. But we'll see there. I have no solid plans. Um, if you don't know who we are by now and are still watching on the fifth episode, then that's weird. But quick introductions. I'm Andrew or Vontography, and I've been shooting cosplay since 2012, and my co-host is Sarah, and I'll let her introduce herself.
I'm Sarah, also known as Sarah Aerodays. I've been shooting cosplay photography for I want to say like 4 years now. Yeah.
So, just a heads up, I'm not sure how long we're gonna take. We got a decent amount of submissions, um, but I know that uh, Sarah's got a head out for a business call at 9:30. So 9:30 her time. So uh
Eastern time.
yeah, so that's an hour and a half from now. So hopefully we can get through everything by then. But if we don't, Sarah's gonna bail out early, and I'll finish things up solo. But without any further ado, let's jump it right into things. So we're going to go to our first photo. Um, this was shot by B Sing Cosplay. I think I'm pronouncing that right, but whatever. E- Expect me to mispronounce things. That should be clear by now. Like, I'm probably have
Yep.
butchered everyone's cosplay page name and like regular name and everything.
I can barely
So
pronounce my own page name, so let's be real here.
yeah, you didn't pick an easy one.
No, it was like something that I chose like a long time ago, and
I
then I
mean,
tried changing
I
it, and it
mean,
didn't go very well, so
I
I
mean,
just kind of
I
stuck
know
with
where it's
it.
from. Okay. Uh Sarah, I feel like you had some when we were talking before the show, you had some feelings on this shot. So why don't you go and jump in on this one first?
Cool, I'll kick us off. Something that I liked about this photo right away is the use of the environment like lighting that they had access to. It looks like it's like some kind of arcade. I want to assume that it was shot at like some form of colossal con or
This
something.
is totally on the edge of like a skee ball table. Uh,
Yeah, I've shot on one of those before, and I love the light that it gives off. And I know Danganronpa can be like a pretty quirky series, so I like that. My only thing is that I think the model could have been lit a little better. So either maybe if there were any external lighting, or it could be brightened up in post, like in Lightroom or Photoshop. And I think this would be a good opportunity to like get really crazy with the colors, like adapt with what you're already given. That's what I liked about this one.
yeah, I think it's always hard when like you're getting the fun colors from that background, but it I don't think this is lit by any sort of strobe. I really don't. So like if you don't have those and you have to deal with the natural light that you're given, it's hard to make that light work. Um So like I understand the difficulty of this situation and trying to get it to work great, and I wouldn't necessarily fault the photographer here for not really, I would say, nailing it, because like the colors are awesome, but then you kind of end up with like that underexposed look on the cosplayer. Uh, but it I'm not sure if, I think probably you were pushing in this shot the your shutter speed anyways. I feel like it's hard to tell whether it's blurry or the depth of field is kind of a little out of focus, and her eyes were missed focus. But either way, I kind of feel like maybe you're this was like pushing the how low you'd want to take your shutter speed for this shot. I don't
Mhm.
think you'd necessarily want to brighten it up in camera either, because then you'll probably lose that kind of fun ambiance that the background brings. Um,
Yeah, this is an instance where I probably would have shot because I've shot some things like this before, and I usually like to try shoot like even a little bit underexposed and then fixing it in post, which creates more work for me. But as someone who doesn't use the lights, I don't mind. But I think that could have helped too.
yeah, um, I also think this is a prime candidate for really photoshopping the light to be totally not real.
I agree.
um, because like I think there's a lot that could be fixed with this shot just by doing some photoshopping. Bringing up the brightness of her to kind of match the background a little bit, I think would help a lot for this image.
hmm
It's like she's underexposed, and I actually don't mind the exposure on her necessarily if the background was different, but because this background is kind of neon and vibrant, like how dull she is kind of feels at odds. Um, so with that said, I'd really kind of bump it up in Photoshop a little bit and have some fun with this one, because you know the background's kind of that wild and neon look, and I feel like you could get away with more because of that.
I agree. Like the background is pretty crazy, and like her character seems pretty crazy too. So it's like kind of like utilize those two things and just like go kind of crazy.
Yeah, it's hard because like I haven't played any Danganronpa, like, and I
hmm
don't know the character at all, but I feel like most of the time I've seen this character, it's been in crazy poses.
Yeah, same. I don't really know anything about it either, but
Yeah,
just from
so
like
like
other
I'm
photos.
inferring a lot, and I don't know if I'm inferring correctly or incorrectly.
hmm
But I feel like the pose is maybe a bit too tame, a bit too, for a lack of a better term that I can think of at this moment, a bit too senior portraity.
I think it
Um,
could have worked if she kind of had like a smirk going
yeah,
on, like looking kind of
yeah,
mischievous.
no,
Yeah.
totally. Um, it's just I don't think any single like there's not necessarily like the pose in itself isn't bad, but I think overall because of the look on her face mixed with the pose,
hmm
it comes off as a little um bland. I think if there's any other thoughts I have on this. Um man, it's hard to know because I don't really know how wide that skee ball table is, but
hmm
I don't like the love the background of this shot. I think it's fun, but the bit of the skee ball table that um is in front of her just kind of like makes it feel a lot less fun and exciting, because you see just kind of like I
Thing.
can't read it. Like that's not what I'm trying to say. Like I can't read the text, but that you kind of get like a label and you're just like, "Oh, it pulls me back a little bit into like, oh, you're sitting on a skee ball table at like some sort of resort or arcade, and like I
Yeah.
get that that's what it is, but like I want to be lied to. That makes sense. Um, I don't know. Maybe the wrong wording for it, but yeah, no, it's but like you might be screwed because that might be just what it is in that situation, and there's no way you could get the shot without getting that in there. Um,
Yeah, it looks like I was like maybe she could have sat in a different lane, but I looked to her on the right of the photo, and it looks like they're at like every single one of them. So
yeah, no, for
it's kind of
sure.
unfortunate. Sometimes with these kind of scenarios, I'll just like take the time to like Photoshop out the words that I see. So then it's just kind of like a simplified version of a thing that I really can't avoid in a shot or the environment. Just so you're not distracted by any like extraneous noise in the
Yeah,
photo.
no, for sure. I totally agree with that. I think that would actually help a lot because
Mhm.
I do think it's that kind of like the words and the logo that end up being the problem, or at least. And honestly, that's pretty nitpicky. So take that with a grain of salt.
In case you guys forgot,
Yeah,
we're nitpicky.
yeah, we're freaking nitpicky. So
Only because we're trying to help, not because we're
it's
assholes.
because we care. We
We
promise.
care.
um, any other final thoughts on this one, Sarah? Are you ready to move on to the next one?
No, I'm good.
Okay, cool.
Also, I want to remind everyone that if we give you feedback and you want to like go back and edit your photo based on some of the things that we said, please do that. Some people did that for our first stream, and I really liked seeing like the after of it.
Yeah, no, that's really cool seeing that when people go back and
Hmm.
re-edit. It's also if you're live and watching this, totally feel free to like give opinions in the chat and talk and like we're watching the chat, so feel free to talk at us. That's why we're do this live and not recording so that you can give us feedback or make comments on the photo if you have some thoughts that we don't touch on.
Yeah.
But so on the next shot. This next one is from Allison or the famous Oki Cosby. Uh,
Sophie Cosby.
um, who is fairly just because I know her pretty well. She's fairly new in terms of being behind the lens instead of in front of it. So that's why I'm always kind of like impressed slash mad that she has gotten such solid work so quickly.
LOL me.
Yeah, yeah, you too. I was gonna say something about you, but I'm like, you've been doing it long enough that I feel like that I can't say anything. But
Oh, stop. No,
um,
I mean, I was saying I agree with you.
okay. Yeah. So
Allison, you crazy.
yeah, God, I'm of two minds with this photo.
Hmm.
Um, the first is that I really like it, and then the second is maybe it feels a bit much or too far in certain parts of the shot. Um, like I think this is one that comes across really striking when you first look at it before you kind of delve deeper into the image. Like if you're scrolling through like your Facebook feed and this photo came up, I think this photo is the kind of photo that would get me to stop. Um, 'Cause it's so contrasty, and it's got a very I feel like very strong subject matter and kind of unique colors to it,
Hmm.
that kind of draws my eye in, and then like but when um I kind of look at it more, there's some issues I have with it. Um, I think right off the bat, just I love how dramatic it is though. Like it like just being in that cave with the shadows taking up so much of the image really does feel impactful. Um, I almost wish, and I know this would be much harder to do, that this shot was taken deeper in whatever cave this happens to be in. Because one of my main problems with this image is that Laura or Lara is using the the glow stick to be able to see in the dark.
Mhm.
But my brain tells me that there's bright light pouring in to this shot or into this scene, and that she wouldn't need the glow stick because it's bright enough for her to see everything with my naked eye. That is my like biggest problem with this shot is just kind of the logic of it.
I
I,
see. I was not thinking that deep into it, but now that you say it.
yeah, no, it's maybe a bit obnoxious that that's where I get caught up on.
No. I mean,
Um,
were you with them? I know you shoot with them
no, I
sometimes.
wasn't with them. I
No,
was
okay.
I was actually with her and Firefly, um, for a different shoot that she did as Lara Croft, but not this one.
Oh, it's not the same
No,
shoot.
it's a different shoot actually. Which,
Oh, okay.
yeah, I was with the first one. I think she submitted one of the Lara Croft for a previous critique as well.
Yeah,
But
it was like
this
in
is
a
a
river
this is a
or
different
something.
shoot. So
Oh, okay. Got it. So you have no context of this at all.
yeah, no, I don't.
Got it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so um,
Well, that aside, I actually remember scrolling through my Facebook feed and stopping because of this photo. Um, I think y'all know by now that I'm like a really big sucker for like those narrative types of images that we don't really see a lot in the cosplay community. Um, I just like how this literally feels like it's out of either like a movie, like one of the movies, or one of the games. Like you've caught her in mid action of doing something. It's not just like her looking badass standing somewhere. I like that like the cosplayer's expression, like it's piqued my interest. Like, what is she looking at? Like, what is she so mesmerized by? I think like her pose and her facial expression and just like I don't know, everything about it just has me like super engaged with the photo, and I want to know more. Um, but I also agree that I think the contrast on this photo is a bit much. Like the blacks, I think they're blacks. I haven't pulled this into Photoshop yet, but like
they're
the shadows are
they're
super
such they're almost blacks. Like I was just doing
yeah.
sampling in Photoshop, and they're like so close to black that they might as well be black.
They're
Um,
pretty, yeah, the black and the white for like the lights is a bit much. So I think just kind of like toning down the highlights next time or the whitest whites and then not crushing the blacks as far as they've been in this photo. Like for like you can't even see her other leg. Like I know it's in there only because like I know how the human body works, but it it just kind of all blends in on the bottom right. So I think if
yeah,
some of those shadows were decreased a bit so we could see more detail of the lower half of her body would be really nice.
for sure. Like
Um,
I think that also comes into play. Like if you were to able to get in a situation where um you weren't getting as much of that backlight coming through,
mhm.
like if you angled this shot, I think so that if you as not moving really at all in terms of like location wise, but if you moved this camera to the right so that the backlight wasn't lined up coming directly behind her, it was more like a side light. um I think that could end up making it feel a little bit better because then you won't get as hot of highlights, so you can get a bit more dynamic range in the shot, and then
Mhm.
you don't like lose as much information.
Yeah.
Because like I don't know, I haven't seen the unedited shot, but like my thought is that like the reason we can't see her leg is because those shadows are just so crushed that there is no leg to see. Like I don't necessarily think that's an editing. Like I think there was an increase of contrast in the editing, but I don't think there was probably that much to see to begin with.
Because of the lighting, yeah.
Yeah. Um in this photo as well, uh the other thing that comes to mind for me is the colors feel a bit weird to me. Maybe it's just me on this one, so you'll have to let me know, Sarah. But
Yeah, I actually really like the colors.
okay, then it is just me. Um
Yeah.
the like color that comes onto her face is, well, one, the saturation is feels like it's just peeking out, like it's clipping. I would maybe desaturate it just a teeny bit, but
No, I agree with
it also feels like it's a bit too red. Like I look at the light coming off of the glow stick, and it's got a yellower glow, and I would expect it to kind of fall on her face like a bit more uh orange than red, but like this is really far in the reds. Um and also in the background we've got, like, directly behind her, the colors that we can see that aren't crushed are the kind of like a tealy blue. But then we probably, I assume these rocks are covered with moss, so then we've got like a strong green. And
yeah.
I just kind of wish that maybe it was a bit more even in that color tone, because like it kind of is feels like the right side of the background is that blue and the left side is that green.
I see what you're saying.
And
Yeah.
like it's almost like if you leaned into it. Like if you took that light and on her face and made it even more red, and then made all the background green ish, you have those complementary colors there, versus take the light on her face more orange and then the rest of the background a bit more blue, then you also get that complementary color balance.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Um
Dean Wong said,
I'm sorry, I was like, I'm not talking because I'm answering his question.
oh god. I was just gonna say, are there any possible workarounds, or fixes for a strong backlight? Uh so it really depends. In this image, so let's assume you have this image taken already. I think you're screwed. I think it is what it is. It's really hard Photoshop out a strong backlight.
Yeah,
um
no, that is so true, as I have tried before and it
yeah.
doesn't work.
Um but I think changing your angle in the shot will help you give less strong backlight. Or if you have someone helping you, my favorite thing to do, and Sarah can, I know, back me up on this, is I use a large, I think it's like a 6 foot reflector, but
Yep.
I don't use it as a reflector. I take off the reflector part, and the like center section is a scrim, or like this translucent screen, and it changes that hard backlight into a very soft backlight. Sometimes you maybe like would want to completely block it out and like use the black side of a reflector to block out the light, but
Hmm.
more often than not, I want to soften the light, or kind of to take the bite off of that kind of a light.
Hmm.
So that's mainly what I would do. But at the same time, that also requires you having usually another person at your shoot to be able to hold it. So
Yeah, I feel like in this case with Allison's photo, I don't know how big this like the background area is. Like I can't tell if light is like seeping in through some trees or if it's literally just like the whole background, like like behind big her is like fully lit. Because in that case, even if you have a really large like diffuser type thing, it would be like really hard. I think,
Yeah.
to diffuse that light. So I think if I was in Allison's position for this shot, I would have used a reflector as a reflector and help bounce some of the light that is coming in onto the model. Um, but again, I don't know the scenario of this photo. I don't even know how much of the light's actually coming in, so it's kind of hard to tell. But I say positioning and a reflector or some kind of external lighting like a flash or something to
Yeah.
help you balance those things out.
Okay, ready to move on to the next one, Sarah?
Yeah.
Okay. Next shot is uh Anna Lambs or
Bonanzers.
Bonanzers. Um just to make a quick statement for people waiting for their photos. Uh if it wasn't obvious by now, but I do everything in alphabetical order by the person's name because that's how I save the files and it just makes my life easier. So, if you're wondering kind of where you'll end up in the lineup if you have a first name starting with S, you're going to be at the end. Sorry, just wanted to clear that up for people if they're specifically waiting for their shots to show up.
Good point. Good point. Cool. So I'll start this one. So what I noticed right away is I really like the direction you took for the color grading in this photo. I feel like usually Bonanza's photos like are more on like the cooler tone side,
I
and I
agree.
like how this one feels really warm. Um,
It's
I
interesting
just
because
love the like fall feel.
it's almost like a pinkish tone to the image overall.
Yeah, and I like it
Just
because I usually don't like uh photos that have like a more magenta feel to it, but for this one, I actually really like it. And also I think like the muted greens in the background and the yellows help balance it out.
I think it's one of those things
Um,
where I'm like, I like it when, except when I do it.
Me, that's relatable.
Yeah, it's just like, oh
Um,
man, when I do it, it looks like ass, but when other people do it, it looks great.
yeah, it's like please teach me. Um, yeah. So some things I want to point out. Also, that backlight is to die for. That little sun peak at the top. You know, I love all that. Um, Also, just curious, because Anne, I see that you're watching. Is that a smoke bomb, or was that just like
Yeah,
I don't know? It
I
just
should have
looks
said in her message she submitted that this was I think her wording was baby's first smoke bomb shoot.
oh, it looks great because it looks really natural. Like it literally looks like it's like one of those like mystical like fairy tale forests that have like a bunch of mist in it and stuff, or like
Hmm.
fog, like natural fog. So I really like how it looks natural.
Yeah, no,
Um,
I think it looks really good. With
yeah, that
the
looks
way the smoke is.
great.
It definitely does have more of a foggy feel to it. Uh, I wish that the only area where that smoke feels like it kind of doesn't work is the very like top left or like of the smoke.
I agree.
Like it
Yeah,
just really
because it ends so
yeah.
abruptly.
That's the only thing that makes me go, oh, that's a smoke bomb.
Yeah,
Otherwise,
like
everything
literally.
else, I'm like, oh, that's just
Yeah,
a
literally as I
bomb.
was saying, I was like, "Oh, wait a minute, it's a smoke bomb," because I see that harsh edge where it stops. But like that again, this is like really nitpicky. Usually, smoke bombs look really fake, in my opinion. And I've shot with them before, but this just looks really sweet. But let me get into the nitty gritty. Um, Unfortunately, I feel like the model's face is out of focus. It looks like her forearm is the thing that is
Yeah.
in the most focus. So I think focus was missed on this shot a tiny bit. Um, Luckily for web version, it's not super noticeable, but when you do zoom in, I can see that the focus was missed on her face. The other thing I really can't decide if I'm really feeling or not, or if it just wasn't avoidable. Is the like the there's no way that's a branch. That's got to be like a full tree trunk, but it cut.
I've got feelings about that branch. Trunk,
It's just
whatever.
really big.
I
um,
don't like it at all.
yeah, I think if maybe like I'm trying to figure out how I can like explain this. I think if it looked like maybe she was like coming out from underneath it or something, it would be okay. But I think because it's cutting across so clearly, across the composition, it's a little distracting for me.
It
Um,
it feels
yeah.
like it's taking up too much of the photo. Um,
Yeah, like it
and
feels very
like
top heavy.
you've got this lovely backlight coming through. It looks really good in this shot, and I feel like we're losing so much of that area that could be devoted to this beautiful backlight to this kind of boring log. Um, not to be tearing into this one too much. Uh, Also, Sarah, I feel like you might know where my I'm going with this. Dutch angle.
I knew it. I didn't want to be the first one to say it.
um, yeah. So my constant battle against Dutch angles are, uh, why are we doing them? And that isn't supposed to be like they're always bad all the time. It's a when you're taking a photo and choosing a Dutch angle, what is your thought behind making this photo at a Dutch angle? What is being enhanced by tilting this photo? Because otherwise, like otherwise, like if it's a shot that would work totally fine with a flat horizon line, and there's nothing specific for it, it just kind of feels like off kilter to me. Like, and I
Yeah.
would categorize this kind of like it's not. I don't think it's an egregious example. I'm like, not. I don't look at this and go like, oh my god, I can't believe Anna Dutch angled this. Oh, that's horrible. But I also go like, what about that angle improved this photo? That if she'd shot it with a flat horizon line, would it have been just as strong, if not more powerful? I kind of think it would, because it would take away that kind of like falling over feeling that the Dutch angle gives to the character.
Yeah, I think that's why the log, like, it doesn't stress me out, but it almost kind of does stress me out because it almost makes it feel like it's like coming toward like the viewer and it's about to like I'm like anticipating it falling actually. I think that's what gets me. But I'm also wondering, only because I've done this before, is if the angle happened because she was trying to get the like the sun glare in the background.
Yeah.
Because I know
Um
I've tilted. I've done like the whole Dutch angle thing because I was trying really hard to get that really nice golden sun. Um, but I don't know.
yeah, I can't make a statement towards that at all. um
I've done it so many times. I'm guilty.
but that's to be fair, this is all my personal thoughts on Dutch angle. Take them for what you will. And don't feel the need to take that as some sort of uh decree that you should never take Dutch angles.
I mean, basically what you're saying that if you're making a conscious decision about something, it should have some kind of
Yeah,
intent.
I think the biggest thing is that Dutch angles are such a like kind of a entry
Cop
level
out.
photographer fallback to be creative. Um and well, that might be problematic. My OBS just said it disconnected. I don't know what that means. Oh, poop. The video stream has been interrupted. Well, let's see if that stream comes back, because that could be potentially crappy.
Oh no, what happened?
I don't know.
What?
Let's let's give it like a couple seconds here. If anyone's watching, to let me know if like the streams
It's
stopped
still
and
going.
came back. That would
I
be
think I think it's still going.
yeah, it with like the
Anna says it's still
streams.
going. She
Oh,
said it froze
sweet.
for like a second.
Sweet. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Thank God. Allison commented if we got to hers. Yes, Allison, we did. Sorry, you missed it.
Sorry.
Um, uh, uh, actually, Mallow makes a cool comment, and I'm gonna expand on this. If Mallow's
Yes.
comment was if the shot was lower to the ground, um, with the Dutch angle, it could still really work. I totally agree with that.
Me too.
And I also think if you shot lower to the ground, pushed her back a little bit, and then moved forward a little bit, you could get that log out of the shot as well.
Hmm.
And Allison, I know you missed it, but like you can watch the once the stream's over, everything's gonna be archived. So feel free to watch over again, and if you have any questions for us, you know how to get in contact with us.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other thoughts for Anna on this one?
No.
All right, cool. Then let's jump on over to shot number 4. And this is Kristen W's or Fluffy Fox Photography.
Want to start this one?
What?
Want to start this one?
Sure, I'll start on this one. So,
Cool.
gosh, there's a lot that I want to say about this photo, and I'm not sure quite where to start. But I'll start on, I think on the pose, which I actually really I like in this shot. There's just one thing that I think that really could have improved this shot a little bit more. And that's if she's got her hand on her chin there, but her chin's kind of is at a flat level. I think if her chin was tipped up a little bit more, so and her hand was kind of like resting on it slash under it, I think that would kind of make the pose feel just that much more dynamic. Like it's good as it is right now. I don't think it's like an overly problematic photo in terms of that, but I do think that kind of will bring a bit more dynamics to it. That and like she's fairly straight up and down in this shot. And I think if you got her to like have her push her chest forward just a little bit, just to and have her hips go back just a little bit, just to give her kind of a bit more of a curve in the shot, just because like a straight line isn't as interesting as one with angles. That's not meant to be like, oh, push out her chest because we want to see a chest. It's just it's that we want that shape. I think that could help a lot. What I really want to get into with this shot is kind of the weird kind of almost filter that it looks like it has on it. So I'm gonna take a guess in the dark because I've spent enough time in Photoshop to maybe to take a guess as to what this effect is, and I think it's hurting your image. But that might be because I've just spent so much time in Photoshop. So Sarah, maybe you can help me out balance here. So I think there was some sort of blur vignette put on this photo, and then that layer was applied as some sort of blending mode. Maybe like a screen or a lighten blending mode. And it gives this kind of like unsettling look to the edges of the frame, kind of in the foreground, like because like this shot really doesn't have any strong depth of field to it, but then like you look at the corners and they start to blur in this like really weird way that totally doesn't look natural in my opinion. Um, so I don't I don't necessarily know if what the method was, but I just know that it comes across as feeling kind of weird to me.
Yeah, I think the blurring could have worked to incorporate some sort of depth of field if it uh logically made sense.
Yeah.
um yeah, I think like Andrew's already said, like I think because like the all around the edges it's blurry, it just kind of like it's a little confusing because there's just I just I mean maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like in real life I don't think that's possible.
No,
uh
I don't. I mean,
so
maybe
that's
with a very
misleading.
specific lens, but it's that, and it's also that my eyes pick up immediately the fact that it feels like a Photoshop job. It doesn't feel like any sort of natural camera blur.
Hmm. And
Um,
luckily now there are a ton of like tutorials online to help like figure out how to like add naturally looking blur in post. But a lot of it is just kind of like masking out and masking in areas where it makes sense. Um, because I don't oppose to the post processing blur, but you just gotta make sure it like logically makes sense with the photo that you've taken.
yeah, no, for sure. Um, any other things that you want to dig into on this one, Sarah? Because I got a couple more things.
The one thing I'm questioning is why the model isn't facing the source of the light. Because it looks like it's hitting from her, well, on from the right side of the photo. So I'm just wondering, like, I think it would have been nice if her face was lit. I don't know. I can't decide. I can't decide if that's a thing that I'm like disliking or I don't mind, but um, I just get a lot of the light coming in from the right, and it would have been nice, I think, if her front was lit better.
Yeah, I don't know if I don't disagree, but I don't know if that's one of my particular problems with this image.
Yeah.
Um, so I do think kind of I imagine that this shot was shot with kind of a fairly entry level lens and camera setup, and that's why there's very little depth of field to this shot. Um, but knowing that, like, I think this shot might look a lot better if it was shot at like an f2.8 versus whatever it was shot at, which I don't know, but I imagine it was probably more like an f5.6 or something like that on a crop sensor, so you're not getting really any depth of field. Um, is that knowing that your background's going to be in this shot and very much clear in this shot, um, to pay attention to how it's working in the photo, because like right now the background's not doing anything for this shot. um
No.
I think maybe if let's say you're in this field and you're kind of got this same, I don't know what this lens is, but maybe stick her in the uh in that area between the two pine trees in the background so that you kind
I
of
was
get more
I
of
was
an
just gonna say that.
because like, man, it's hard. Like I'm gonna be honest, I lean on bokeh all the time. I'm shooting at shallow depth of field, so like taking that away from me is like,
Torture.
yeah, it's like severely handicapping me. So it I, I think it's very hard to work like that. So but it really makes you have to think a lot about what is going on in your background.
Hmm.
um and I think especially lining up that pine tree to center exactly with her head is just kind of feels a little wonky as well.
Hmm.
Um, the last thing I want to say is the about this image is the colors. Um, kind of getting like this like sepia nostalgic feeling from the colors,
Hmm.
and I'm not certain that's working for the photo. Um, because like the cosplayer has such strong like primary colors with the reds, yellows, and blues.
Yeah.
That toning all of that down feels like it's kind of weakening the kind of drama of the cosplay. Um, I think maybe a bit more of a natural take on the colors could work better.
Yeah, I agree.
But I think that's everything I got on this shot. Anything else, Sarah?
No, I think I'm good.
Cool. Let's move on to the next one then.
Mallow said it needs some dark greens. No,
Oh, surprise,
her
surprise. Can't imagine Mallow
surprise,
saying
surprise. But
that.
she makes a good point though. Like I think if the greens and the yellows, like not
Yeah,
necessarily in her sword, but in the background were toned down a tiny bit, so the cosplayer popped
yeah.
more. Um,
I think I understand the desire to kind of take it this color when you've got that kind of all that tall dead grass. Taking it that
mhm,
color kind of gives it a bit of a fall feeling to it, but like
yeah,
there's just something that doesn't quite work in this shot for that, I think. So,
I think it's just a little too yellow. Like if that was just scaled back a tiny bit, like
yeah,
that would help a little bit. But again, picky thing.
cool. So, let's move on to the next shot, which is from David Glasgow or DLG Images.
Cool. I really want to know where this photo was taken because this location looks bomb.com.
I think it probably looks cooler than it is because I think that the color of that water is super shopped. I could be
Well,
wrong,
because
but
I have seen rivers that are that color, so
mm.
I don't know if it's like super photoshopped or not, but
So
I really
I'm
really
so
like it.
taking a guess. I know the cosplayer and
Oh, you do?
photographer's location, and
Uh-huh.
I think it's probably somewhere in Minnesota area, and I don't think they have many rivers like this.
Oh, it's in
So
Minnesota,
yeah,
really?
I'm pretty sure.
Oh,
Don't
wow.
hold me to
Okay, yeah,
that,
probably
but
photoshopped then.
yeah, which is fine.
Uh,
But that speaks to this photo is that you go. I've seen rivers that are this color, and there's nothing that's really throwing you off about it. So if it is photoshopped, which I think it is, it's showing that it was well done in that respect. So
yeah,
there's
like the color of the water did not make me think like that's really unrealistic.
yeah.
Okay, anyway. First thing is, yeah, so clearly I like the color grading. I'm a sucker for it. It looks really cool. I like how it has this kind of more like editorial magazine kind of feel to it. I really enjoy that. You don't see that a lot. One thing is actually I'm not sure if I know what the cosplay is. I know we've brought this up before where there are photos and you're not really sure like what it's supposed to be. Um, so that's kind of throwing me off a little bit. I don't quite understand who who the model is supposed to like what character they're portraying. Um, but other than that,
So so
those are my first initial thoughts. And also I want to know if like the the not the noise, but like the particle stuff. Can't tell if that's. I think it is photoshopped.
yeah, no,
I don't know how.
I thought
I
it
don't know
was.
how I feel.
Uh, I d- I thought it was maybe like bugs or something at first, but now that I look at it,
Yeah,
it's totally photoshopped and like
yeah.
there's
There's like this one. There's this one on the left that's like definitely. It's like a dust texture or
oh yeah.
something.
No, that's not the one that bothers me. There's one that's directly on her like the middle of her forehead. And I'm like,
Oh my god! I didn't even see that.
yeah. And I'm like, that one no, that needs to go away.
Oh my god! Why? Okay.
Yeah, I think it was an attempt at like trying to kind of give this image almost like, like a printed feeling and give that like texture. And I don't one, I think that this image is not the candidate for that style. and
Agreed.
I don't think it was pulled off very well.
It's a very specific scenario to do
Yeah,
something like
uh,
that.
and also this is interesting. Something that I noticed just finally with this image because of how vibrant the colors are in it is that looking at this image in stream versus the image in Photoshop, um, that the colors ended up less vibrant in the stream. I just wanted to give that to context for people because I was kind of surprised because I was watching the stream to see comments come in and go, "Wow, this is does not feel like the same colors." Um,
Yeah, I see it.
yeah, so just want to say that like I think for whatever reason uploading it via the stream it ends up muting the color, but whatever, not a huge deal in terms of the critique. Um, Overall though, I really like this image. I think the biggest thing that's bothering me about it is it's got a little bit of what I call alien eyes. Um, I feel like the eyes were just enhanced a bit too much. The whites of her eyes were brightened just a teeny bit too much. Um, and it kind of like makes her eyes feel like they're almost like starting to glow. It's not I don't think this is an overdone version of it, but it does come across as unnatural.
Yeah, it's almost there. I think, yeah, because she's not lit anywhere in the front, so all the light's coming from the back or the
Mm.
left.
Yeah, and her eyes are going to be darker, which like
Yeah,
for
which
this
should be fine.
image is hard because it's so much dependent on um the viewer's connection with the eyes of the cosplayer. Um, this is, I think, the perfect scenario for you if you have a reflector, just to
Hmm.
throw just the tiniest bit of light back in her face to give her just a little bit of fill light, but also when you add that, it's gonna give her a catch light in her eyes and just brighten up her eyes just a little bit more, and I think that would really help fix that and not make you have to edit it to kind of give that kind of unnatural eye look.
Yeah, that would look really nice actually in this shot, especially.
Hmm. Um, Other nitpicky thoughts. One thing I know I would come through and do if this were my own photo is I would spend some time liquefying the hair. What I mean by that is on
Hmm.
the viewer's right side of her head, it's kind of got like this W-shaped wave to the hair. Um, and I think that kind of like middle bump out of it of that shape, which I highlight in the stream, um, that this area right here, um, if you liquefied that down and kind of made her hair end up kind of matching the other side of her head, I think it just would end up feeling a bit nicer of a shape. It kind of like makes her head look a little bit bulkier than it
Then
should
it,
be. And this
yeah,
this is a problem that wigs constantly do is they make heads look bulkier because it's, lots of people are applying a fake layer of hair on top of their hair to begin with, so like naturally it's going to go out further than any hair would, so it kind of gives like this bulkier look. So like if I ever feel like I'm getting that and the image can work for it, I will just liquefy the hair down just a little bit so that it feels a little less bulky and feels a bit more like natural hair versus a wig.
I think this brings up a good point that like the liquefy tool, because I feel like we're taught that the liquefy tool is just to change like your body shape and whatever. But you can use it for more than just like making unrealistic changes to someone's body. You can use it to like, as Andrew's talked about, like making the wig look not as like full, or sometimes even enhancing. Like I've liquefied a lot of wigs just to either like kind of like tame down the volume that it puts on someone, or to even like enhance it a little bit if it needs it. Like if it fell flat and I didn't notice while I was shooting. And this also can be applied to like clothes as well. Like sometimes there will be like a really weird seam bulging out when they're posing, and I'll just kind of like
Oh
push it
yeah,
in.
I use it all the time to fix like weird puckers that happen in clothing.
Yeah. So like don't think that just because the the mainstream use of the liquify tool is for body only, like think of how you can use it in other ways to help fix your photo.
Yeah. Uh, for example, I just did like the quickest liquify take in the world to kind of highlight what I was talking about, and I don't necessarily think this is a great job, but it kind of like shows what I'm getting at, and like comparison after just bringing that wig in just a little bit and evening out that right side of the image helps.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Ready to move on?
Yep.
Okay. The next one up is White Specs Photography.
Oh boy howdy, my boy Eddie.
um, so gosh, this one I feel like I have less to talk about, but mostly because I really like the shot. Um, so I don't know. Sarah, do you want to jump into this one first?
Sure. I don't really have, you know what, I don't have a lot to say. I really, because I really like this shot too. I think it's really well lit. Um, and I really like this the symmetrical feel that it has. Um, there is one oh okay, I see. Um,
Care to fill us in?
there's this is just kind of like a styling thing. Um, actually, now I can't tell if her dress is being flipped or if it's sitting on the stairs. I think it is being flipped. Um, I kind of wish the white sash hadn't been covering the detail. Again, these are just like really nitpicky things that I like picking on Eddie. Just kidding. Anyway, um, no, I guess it's just a sash. So I guess that's just I can't really. I'm gonna not get hung up on that. Never
Yeah,
mind.
I kind of get what you're going, where kind of that the drape of that covers her dress a little bit, and maybe it would look a little bit better if it had not been doing that.
Yeah, I actually thought it had flipped up, like so that was like the
Yeah.
inside of the dress. Like that's it's crazy how well it fell to the like to the shape of the dress. Like I can't get over
Yeah.
that actually.
Um
That's why I was confused.
yeah. So on that and just this is a kind of a technical side of the photography note is like looking at that area of like the feet the 2B in the shot, you can see you're getting a bit of that like flash motion blur, um and because like that, from my understanding, if your ambient isn't two
Oh, is that what
stops,
that's called?
yeah, your ambient is not two stops darker than your flash, you can get that kind of motion blur from the flash not free. Like the flash is freezing the image, but you're also getting the blur from the ambient light, so you get that bit of like weird blur on her dress. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you just gotta deal with that shit. Like it's just gonna happen sometimes. But like I would maybe have tried to take
Clean
this
it up a bit.
image, maybe clean it up in post. Like you getting a little bit on her leg of that like ghosting, and then there. But or you could try dropping the ambient a little bit.
And this would
Uh,
have been a pretty easy post cleanup because the dress
yeah,
is so black and flat.
yeah, it's in a super easy area to fix it up in. That's the good news. Um,
Um, Speaking of flash, I hate to point this out, but I can see it on the left.
yeah, I noticed it. That's pretty nitpicky, but like
I mean,
you'd only need to have moved it like the teeniest bit to have it out of the shot.
it's also a really easy Photoshop fix too.
True.
Um,
Uh, other super nitpicky thing on this shot that when I'm looking at this, and call me crazy, like I am no menswear uh guru, but if I'm right, I'm pretty sure that the tie is supposed to be under the vest,
Yep,
and that's
you are
driving me
correct.
nuts.
Yeah.
And I know that's not the photographer's fault, but just like an I tried to have an eye out for things like that, and oftentimes I'm like questioning it, like, do I know this right? But like, if that's something that you're just like, oh, but I see that, you should probably fix that and tuck that into your vest instead of leaving it out, just like a little extra note. And just trying to have us photographers go and above and beyond what our expectations are beyond just clicking the photo.
Oops, sorry guys.
Oh man.
um, Neil has confirmed that the tie goes under the vest.
Yeah. So, and I was gonna say, if you're being really ambitious, you can Photoshop that.
Yeah,
um.
no.
Uh. Mallow made a comment about that she would have maybe toned down the yellows and oranges. Oh, not maybe. She said for sure. And played around with the highlight color. I don't
Mhm.
know if I agree with that. I think this image has a very specific look to it, and
Very clean editing.
yeah, and I think doing that would definitely give it a interesting look and a very um and one that I would more closely associate with Mallow. But I think for Eddie and kind of the style that I know him for, I think this is one of the stronger shots I've seen from him.
I agree.
Um the lighting on the two models I think is really great as well.
So balanced.
Yeah.
I dig
I
it.
I have a hard time getting this kind of lighting as balanced on multiple people without it like it feeling either too flat because I'm too straight on, or I
Hmm.
move it too far to the right, so like one model is lit perfectly and the other one looks not nearly as good, but like both of them look really nicely lit, so props on that.
I'm gonna
um
bring up a nitpicky thing.
okay, I hope to god it's the nitpicky thing I was just about to mention.
It's probably not, but it was one of the like the first like things that caught my attention. Just like again, Eddie, I'm just picking on you. Um, I'm actually I'm not I'm trying to figure out how to word this.
Without sounding like a
Um,
dick.
like the retouching on the faces is so like the texture of the face of both their faces, like their skin texture doesn't match um the rest of their bodies. I don't know. I just like for some reason like I just really like honed in on how smooth like their faces
Oh
are,
yeah,
but then
it's over smoothed, and
there's
that's for certain. Like you can
yeah.
look at like her shoulder, and there's more texture in it than on her face. The
Yes. I
thing,
think it just went a little too far. Like
yeah,
on the male model, like you even lose like definition, like where his nose is,
yeah.
and where his jawline is, which it's a little unfortunate. But
I
I mean, it looks nice, but I
yeah
think if the smoothing was applied to like everything, like every part, like skin that is showing, it would be okay. But because the skin like of the faces are so smooth, and then everything else, um, just because like Vivid Vision, the 2B, she her like her arms, you see so much of her arms and her legs, so there's just an easy thing to compare it to.
yeah. Uh,
That's something that kind of
the only reason I feel like it gets a pass in this photo is because of how wide the shot is. If the shot was
mm-hmm,
not this wide, like and like half of this image is background. Like if it were
right.
like only a quarter of the image was background and the rest of it was models, I think you'd really key into that retouch and it'd be more distracting. But as it is right now, it doesn't especially bother me. The other nitpicky thing I was gonna bring up is there's like three specks on the ceiling in the center of the frame,
Yep.
and those are like the easiest quick Photoshop where you can just go doop 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 and they're gone. So do that.
Just simple cleaning up.
Yeah. Yeah, like that that one's just super simple, so I figured go for it. Like there's like other like if you were going incredibly nitpicky, you can see like a bit of lettering over their shoulder that's like probably like something Hall, and
Yeah, I was gonna say that
I
too.
would get rid of that. But no one really is going to notice that, so like I also am kind of like, it depends how long you want to spend on an image, because that one's gonna be a little bit more annoying to do, and because like it's next to some edges and uh important edges of your frame being the models, so like yeah, I get not doing that one.
Me. But I definitely agree. Like when we said it earlier, this is like one of Eddie's best shots.
Yeah, like
I
the
think it's
overall shot and the composition, I think is and the lighting is really really solid. I like it a
really
lot.
great.
uh
Good job, Eddie.
okay, on to the next one.
Yeah.
Gonna be Eric Jaworski.
Like I'm not even gonna try to pronounce that last name.
Okay. Um. Uh, Sarah, do you want to grab this one or do you want me to?
You can start.
Okay. I I think this one is gonna be a little bit harder to for me to critique, not
Mhm.
because it does anything wrong, but I think also equally that it is like dead in the middle for like in terms of like a photo. There is no major sins that this photo is committing, yet it is also just kind of good. Like not to be offensive, that's not the point of this, but it comes across kind of bland feeling. Like the the colors, like with the greens, blues, purples, you've got the blacks. There's just a lot going on color wise. You got some browns with the tree branches. Um, you get kind of magenta in her skin tones. There's a lot of color information that I don't think is especially cohesive in the shot. And then lighting wise, the background and the model have similar uh, levels of lightness, so they kind of like she doesn't pop out from her background very well.
Yeah, it feels kind of flat to
Yeah.
me.
So
There's
like
like no dimension.
but on the same side of things, like they're like the lighting, while not like spectacular, is also not bad by any means. Like it's a
Right.
fairly like soft light, if almost too undefined, so you start losing some features. um I'd be interested to know, and maybe I can find it in the file. Sometimes the metadata is still in these files. Is Yeah, so um looking at this shot, uh it was Canon 5D Mark III, um at ISO 50 millimeters, ISO 6400, and f6.3. Which,
ISO
yeah,
6400?
yeah, that I
Holy
noticed there
moly.
was a ton of grain in this image,
Yeah.
and that the background was fairly sharp. And I'm going when I look at that and look at the file, I don't know why you're shooting this image this way. Um, I don't see a reason for you to be at f6.3. The sharpness in the back, like there's nothing that I think you particularly are trying to show. Like if you had that blur more, I think it helps separate the model from the background more, and then also is going to uh, give you more light that you can work with, so you're not cranking up to 6400 here. Like you look at like up close, and I'll see if I can show this for people on the stream. I'm gonna really blow this up, but like in her eyes, I feel like you kind of lose the information for where like the iris is versus the pupil is, because it's just there's so much grain built up in this image,
Hmm.
from being at 6400, that you kind of just lose that definition. And like this is a kind of shot that could easily have been toned down from ISO 6400. I don't know what lens this was, but it being 50 millimeters makes me think at least you're gonna be able to get to like an f4, um and that gives you more light and like the added sharpness of that. I just don't see a reason to be shooting at that high of an f-stop. Maybe that's
And then you wouldn't have had to do, because I noticed this image also has the same like border blur as like the Lucina photo that we looked at earlier.
yeah.
Um, and you wouldn't have had to do that if the f-stop was lower.
Yeah, you would have also
That
had the like a bit of a more natural vignette in the image that would help
hmm
focus it. Also, if you're gonna do these fake blurs, make sure that you're adding grain back to the blurred areas,
Yep.
because otherwise they read as super unnatural, because your eyes goes, I see the like even from further out, I feel like your brain reads like the grain in the image is kind of like a micro contrast, and then there's none in those branches, so you kind of read it as photoshopped.
Yeah, grain is not a bad thing. I think the other thing that we're kind of like that's miscommunicated is that grain is bad, and it's not. That's what makes photos look natural. Um, so yeah.
I
Mm,
I also think this is a candidate for playing around with the colors a bit more. Um, Bring out the warmth in the colors of those greens more, like turn them more yellow or even like almost orange, and really kind of add some complementary colors to that blue. I think would work. I also think that the shadows on the cosplayer are just too bright. Like um that's kind of bodysuit I want to be reading as more black, and like as it is right now it kind of reads as a bit of a gray to me.
gray, yeah.
um Trying to like pull out
Yeah, I
ones
kind
that,
of want to know what the raw image looked
yeah,
like, just to see like what kind of editing was done.
yeah. I'm just sampling, and this kind of confirms what I thought my eyes were seeing is I it's probably a reflection of the forest around her, but you're getting a bit of like greenish tones in the blacks of that bodysuit, and I would almost try and edit that black so it was more like of a pure black, um, instead of having like a color tone to it. If that is, if you choose to go with the kind of natural lighting or color edit. Um, uh, Luce says like I'd rather have a sharp image than have the grain bother me. I understand the want for a sharp image, but here's the thing: with most camera lenses at this point in time, you are getting more depth of field by going past like f4, f5.6. But your image really isn't getting that much sharper. Like
Mm-mm.
at that point, like the only way you're gonna really be able to tell the sharpness difference is if you get into like a lab and are going like you're on a tripod and taking images and looking at back and forth, and you're going, oh yeah, it's definitely sharper at f
Yeah.
6.3 versus f 5.6. No one cares.
That is so true.
So and you're uploading these to
To the web.
Facebook most of the time. Like I get it, because like I play into doing like editing and tweaks and caring about sharpness that's never going to be noticeable on image, but like Um, I do think that kind of level of sharpness is overrated. And I would also say that like because of the grain, this image also becomes less sharp because you also like at ISO 6400, you are getting less dynamic range than you would and less detail than you would if you shot this at ISO 800, let's say. Like
Yeah.
the eyebrows like at the edges have details, but like the center of the eyebrow just kind of becomes like a mush of color because it's getting lost in all that noise information.
Hmm.
And I think shot at like ISO 800, you'd see more of that, and like you'd be able to make out her. Like if I zoom in and show this to the stream again, um, like
Up, Eric's commenting.
you'd be able to see her eyelashes more. Like you lose them here, but I think it's just because of the grain. This is from Eric, so people that are watching this post, says, for my Raven photo, I did a lot of color work from boosting the purple and blue and taking away the yellow from the skin to mimic the white gray skin of the character. The suit had did have a bit of a blue color, so I took that off to make the suit look. Yeah, I don't. It's hard to. It's always hard to know without like comparing it to the base photo. Um,
Hmm.
and I do think like the colors look like in her hair and her skin, I think work fine for that. Um, I do think that her suit just kind of still feels off to me.
Yeah, it's like
Um,
if you're gonna go for the black thing, like it should be very explicitly black.
yeah, don't worry about showing us the raw. I don't
Oh yeah.
necessarily say we even want to see the raw. We're just kind of like but we're more of trying to say what we'd like to see, and it might have, and with the understanding that we don't know the conditions that this shot was shot under, so it might not be possible. So we're saying in the ideal situation, this is what would happen, and I'd edit it, and maybe based on what your shot was originally, this is a awesome recovery of an image. Like it's hard to know. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Maybe get one more in before Sarah has to book it.
Yeah, before I got sorry, if I'm looking at my phone, it's because I'm making sure I'm not missing. I have to take a work call, so not trying to be rude.
Um, just as a heads up for you, Sarah, like depending on how long it takes, which I kind of imagine this will not be a short work call, but shoot me a message when it's done, and if I'm still not finished, you can hop back in.
Okay, cool.
Cool. So let's get this one from Felix real quick before Sarah boogies on out of here. Um, I actually did a bit of a critique on this one before when he posted it.
Oh, really?
So yeah, so uh, I have a lot to say on this one. But since Sarah, you need to leave, why don't you get your words out on this one first, and then you can just drop on out after that.
Cool. So something that I really liked right away was the color like toning slash like soft feel that it has. I follow quite a few of these like Asian photographers on Flickr, and they have this kind of editing style. Um, I'm really a sucker for those like soft, like muted pastel colors, and I really like how it looks in this photo. Which is funny because like I feel like Toradora, the anime that this is from, is like anything but that, and also her
Yeah.
character is like not soft at all. I
No.
mean, she's the ultimate like tsundere, but I really like how the colors work in this photo. I think something that helps it is having that big Rilakkuma and that alpaca in it, just to kind of like soften the overall like emotion of the photo. I think is what I'm trying to say. So I really like the colors in this. Um, what else? Yeah,
I feel like I can't get behind the colors in the same way you
that's okay.
do.
Personal preference.
um I almost feel like it's softened this image a bit too much It's like the lighting in this image is really soft, and then you add kind of the color, and it gets a bit. It kind of gives this feeling. Also, the focus was missed. Focus landed
On her
on
face.
her legs versus on her eyes. So like
Hmm.
all of those things combined, and maybe if like the one thing was changed and it would make the coloring feel better to me, but it kind of gives like this almost like Vaseline feel, like the image was like rubbed with like a layer of
Oh,
Vaseline.
that is so gross.
um and just that
Yeah,
kind
I
of
mean,
like loss of clarity really bothers me.
yeah, no,
um
I was gonna say like I wish there was more like I guess I think clarity is the right word, like contrast or something, because it does feel like a tad bit too flat.
yeah, like
Um,
especially when you've got like these her leggings are black, but they're so high up in the like the shadows have been lifted so much in that area that it just kind of feels a bit too unnatural.
mhm.
um I feel like they do need to read still as black and not gray, like
I don't think blacks are difficult, my friends.
no, it's not easy, but I mean, this is just super quick in Photoshop, making a curves adjustment layer and bringing those blacks down just a little bit. I think, and maybe that's even a bit strong for what this image is, but I do think it helps kind of balance the image out a little bit more. Um,
Yes, 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 yes.
the the biggest area that I think this shot could use some improvement on is the posing. This pose that she's in, the Taiga cosplayer, is so it's almost like a lowercase t, where
Oh
like
my God.
but like it it really is shortening her torso and her legs, because and like her her like lower leg and then like her bottom kind of just feels like it's taking up visually so much of the image that
Yeah.
it's just that's where all of her weight is. And I'm friends with the cosplayer, and I know that's not how she looks, yet it's very heavily weighted there. um and just if you like took her legs out and had her kind of like in a bit like of a Z or a zigzaggy position, so like her legs were towards the corner of the frame,
Hmm.
um, that would really help this shot a lot. It would take that weight out. It would allow you to see kind of the way the shape of her torso is, instead of having it kind of all taken up by her arm. um and then would lengthen her legs a lot.
I think also her just kind of like sitting up a little bit straighter too would help.
Yeah, I almost wonder if you raise the camera more and come more of a downward
More
angle,
down.
if that might help a little bit as well.
Yeah.
um
I got a jet.
okay,
uh,
thanks for joining us, Sarah. If you're finished and I'm still going, feel free to hop back in. So
cool.
um have fun on
Thank you.
your business call.
I will. I'll try to enjoy it. Bye, guys.
Well, everyone, you're stuck with just me now. How does that make you feel? um. So the, the pose, I think, is the area that really limits this shot, because like there's a bit of it of like the jacket kind of gets a little bit lumped up at the back, and like if you just took the time to kind of have that drape a little better, it would help. Same with the skirt. The skirt feels a bit rumpled there. Um and also I'm not sure, like I like the two other stuffed animals. I in terms of like context wise, the tiger works because the tiger is from Toradora. But like the two, the Rilakuma and the alpaca, like I almost want them removed because like they add kind of this like other focuses that I don't necessarily think you need there. I think it could work better without having them in. Um that and like the Rilakuma kind of almost has this like bit of like a creepy vibe of like it's almost like sneaking up behind Taiga like uh but maybe that's just me inferring that. Color tone wise, I think you know, Sarah talked about that pastel color. But like Taiga's colors are so primary, and I think if you just took the soft lighting and kind of stuck with the primary colors, you'd be fine. I think it would look really nice. The one last thing that I want to bring up on this image, and once again, it's nitpicky, is on her shoulder, the way that one strand of hair is following and kind of, in this like spiral around her shoulder ends up just feeling really weird. If you just like brushed that off her shoulder and have that fall behind her, that would I think work would look a lot better. Just take out one more distraction. Okay, let's go on to the next image here. This one is from Kai. Man, I feel so much pressure now that I'm the only one here. I gotta say all the smart things. Damn it. um, dude. It's always hard because like when I first load up an image, I'm just like, shit, where do I start with it? So how do I start talking? I don't even know. Um, I think this image has a lot of potential. But I think it needs to be in a different setting to really work. What I mean by that is, because this was, oh, excuse me, because this was strobed, I think there really wasn't any attention paid to the background, and instead just kind of it. I'm not saying there wasn't, but it feels like there wasn't. You kind of get like this weird like machinery going on. I have a vague idea of where this was taken, and it just kind of feels funky. And I think that I thought was that you're taking the background mostly to black so that you wouldn't need to really pay attention to the background that much. What I'm gonna say there is if that's what you're gonna do, make sure that background falls into black. Um, uh, it's not a style I particularly get behind for my own work, but there's a photographer called the Portrait Dude who does this style with all his work where he pushes the almost all of his shots he's pushing the background to black, and it works really well for his style of shooting. um I think maybe that's if you were going if this is what you were stuck with, that's kind of what I would lean into with this image. Um, Also, like with taking the image to black like this, you could up your f-stop a little bit because like right now gonna look at the details. This was shot at f3.2, I don't know, 50 millimeter, which I get is like stop down a fair ways from whatever the low f-stop is on this f1.4 or f1.8. Oh man, disconnected again. Son of a bitch. I don't even know why that's doing that. Let's see if I reconnect here in a second. Um People give me a thumbs up to make sure that this is still streaming. or if I've fully borked it and I'm screwed. No one's commenting and I'm scared. Okay, cool. Thumbs up. We're good. Cool. So I'm continuing. So the reason I say that with the f-stop is like the Wolfwood cosplayer, his face is out of focus. Um, Shoot this at like an f5.6 or like even higher. You're gonna take that background darker. You can just push your flashes up a little bit more so that they're still lighting the models, and I think you're gonna have a more powerful image with this. Um, Posing wise, I think it's just a bit too heavy on Wolfwood versus Vash, and I feel like um the direction of everyone's faces feels a little bit disconnected from one another. What I mean by that is I kind of almost get this like look that, and it's probably because of the angle of his face and you can't really see his eyes, but the Wolfwood cosplayer on the right feels like he's looking down into the left a little bit versus Vash, who looks like he's looking directly at you. Um, so that feels a little disjointed. Also, Wolfwood's torso is facing the camera far more than Vash's, so I would just like to kind of balance that out a little bit and bring Vash's torso a little bit. And I'd almost push Wolfwood a little bit more to the edge of the frame because he's got that big cross on his back that's taking up so much of the frame that you can get away with pushing him a little bit further because he's got so much visual weight to him because of that, more so than Vash. That way it kind of balances out a little bit more. But also I'd maybe try playing around with the colors a little bit here. Like they feel very natural, but also kind of like a bit too clean. I think, I don't necessarily have an idea of where I'd take these colors. I'd need to play around with it to see what felt good. But right now they just feel a bit too clean. And I'd like to see kind of a bit more done with them. Okay. I think that just about sums up my thoughts on that guy. So let's move on to the next one. This one, oops, clicked wrong. This one is from LKM Photography. And one of my notes I got from him was this is one of his very first time shooting with gels. So wanted maybe some thoughts on how that worked shot. Right off the bat, I like we've had lots of like soft lit images um in this set so far. And I really think this one kind of I would say shows what I would aim for more of in the soft lighting, because like the lighting on her face is fairly directional but soft and still gives definition to her face, but also because it's coming that still has direction. We're getting highlights on her face, we're getting that highlight on her lip, we're also getting the catch light in her eyes. And my god, like especially if you're shooting anime and cutesy anime, like you kind of like having catch lights in eyes helps so much to giving kind of a more brilliant eye, which feels more in line with anime. Like when they don't have catch lights, it kind of doesn't feel quite as good. See if it's still coming through. The live streaming process, Facebook changed how the everything the setup works, and it's interface wise a lot better, but seems like the stability has dropped down a bunch, because like the streams cut out for me a bunch of times on my end, and then like two full disconnects. So like That sucks. And it did it again. Son of a bitch. I just want to see people's comments, damn it. Okay, let's dig in deeper on this one. Um, I pose wise, I'm I like it, but it almost has a bit too much visual weight on the lower half of the image than the top half. Um, what I mean by that is like if you look at her legs and like uh she's sitting in a way that her legs are her feet are pointed out at either side, which is a very cute way to sit. But I think with this angle, just ends up there's so much like visual weight on that side. I think maybe bringing the camera up and away from her a little bit more, so that you get a little bit of like less of that perspective distortion towards the bottom of the frame could make it like a little bit even weight wise more. Or the other thought is instead of having her sit with both of her feet pointing in opposite directions, what you could do is have them sitting, so she's kind of sitting on one leg and so both of her feet are pointing the same direction. You get a fairly similar pose, but I think her lower half ends up taking less weight in the image. When I say weight, I don't mean her weight. I just mean like the amount of visual space it takes up, because like I'm not like looking at this and going makes her look fat. That's not what I'm trying to communicate. Another like weird thing with the posing is her arm, um because of the way she has it, like it the bend in her elbow feels really weird. I don't I'm like trying to think of it, and I don't know if her hands turned, but it almost looks like her elbow is going in the opposite direction, like it's hyperextended, which I don't know if it is, and I'm just seeing it incorrectly or what, but it feels super weird. So, uh yeah, I don't really know there. Um but on to kind of the main ask with this image, which is the gels. If you hadn't told me that this shot was using colored gels, I don't particularly know if I would have thought that it used colored gels on the flash. I don't particularly know if I would have thought it was strobed either. Like, I mean, now that I look at, like I can tell in her eyes there's one main flash and it looks like a reflector as a fill, and then you've got the flash, the gelled flash directly behind her. Um, I think the thing for me with that gelled flash behind her is I don't really know if it's doing much in the image. Like it's casting a bit of a color glow directly behind her, but I don't know if that's really adding much to the shot. Um, and it really isn't feeling much like a light source. I mean, hard to tell. Maybe that white wall would not be nearly as bright without the flash there. So maybe that's helping some there. But normally what I do to get when I'm using color gels and want to bring color into the images, I'm not blasting the color behind and away from the cosplayer, but I am putting the flash behind the cosplayer, but towards the cosplayer as a rim light, so that you add the color that way. I find that tends to be more powerful and more effective. That said, I don't know for this image that with the kind of um, bright and cutesy look that it has, if a rim light works, it, if a rim light would work as well. I don't really know. So it would have been something that could have been worth trying. But at the same time, right now, I almost feel like that colored flash gel is not doing a heck of a lot for you. So like it looks like that the ground has a very similar color to the flash anyways, so who knows. Overall though, I actually really like this image. It nails the kind of like cutesier look, I think. If we want to get like into a couple super nitpicky things, what I might have done is tried to in the inside, you can see inside of her crown, and I would maybe try and photoshopped out the clip that you can see from the inside, and maybe if I felt like I was pushing even further, I would Photoshop out that seam, um, so that it's totally feels more like an actual crown and not like this thing sewn together. I'd also maybe add like a bit more definition in eyes, like kind of define the iris a bit more versus the pupil, and then just add a bit more depth in pupil. But outside of those things, I think this shot worked really well for what it is. Uh, yeah. So, what about the background? I feel like it's going through the head. Um, yeah, I don't know if that particularly bothers me. Where that horizon line kind of is going through her body. I think maybe if you put it by her shoulders, it might work a little bit better. But at the same time, it does kind of continue to add a focus point at the head. So I don't know if it doesn't especially bother me. All said, okay. Um, no, if hopefully, oh god, it doesn't especially bother. Um, hopefully I can actually see. That was sucking for me for a little bit because Facebook sucks. Okay, let's move on to the next shot, which is lose up. Just for perspective, what I am always doing is I have all the images loaded up in Photoshop, so that's where I'm looking at them because it allows me to just quickly zoom around and get a better grasp of the image. I want to say that another image of this cosplay was submitted by this photographer in a previous critique, and I think I like this image a fair amount more than that previous shot. It's action shots I think are fairly hard to pull off in for cosplay photography, and I think it works here, so props on that. Like this kind of shot where you have the arrow slightly blurred out of the shot is one of those shots that I think is easier said than done, because you really have to have I think there's a very fine range of depth of field that it works. Like if you are like me and always cranking your f-stop to the maximum amount, um it's gonna blur the foreground too much and you wouldn't be able to read that arrow as an arrow. But if you take the depth of field so it's so sharp, I think if you see that arrow and it's perfectly crisp, you kind of remove the idea of depth from the image and it doesn't read as well. So I think where this image really works is it's got that depth of field blur that adds the depth to the shot, but it doesn't uh blur it too much so it's totally unreadable. Like you look at this image and I think you instantly know what's going on. Um, where this image I think falls down a little bit is in the lighting. The way that the lighting is falling on the cosplayer's face and like only lighting half of it is kind of gives this bit of a jarring look. Um, it really highlights that area underneath her eyes because of how strong and hard that light is. Um, just gives an overall fairly unattractive, uneven lighting. So, and I, I would like to have seen it with her body a bit more towards that light, um, so that it gave a more even light on the face, and I think that would have helped more. Also, in terms of the balance of this image and the background, I would like to have seen this shot just pulled back just a teeny bit more. Not because I want to see more of the background, but because the cosplayer is so close to the edge of the frame. I'd want to have them a bit more centered in the frame, more like on a third of the image instead of like a sixth the sixth line of the image. If that makes sense. Um Also in the background, uh like you get that tree in nature, but I feel like it's broken up for me because you have this hard line of like either a wall or a door frame or something of that sort. And being able to see that kind of ruins a bit of illusion for me. Dang it. Talking so much makes me yawn. Um and I think that's an easy fix. You just if you just change the angle of the shot a little bit, like you'd be able to work it so that that line is not in the um uh that BG was killing me at the con. Oh yeah, working with backgrounds at conventions can put a lot of mental strain on you. I know, and oftentimes what can happen is like you're so focused on this shot and getting the arrow in the right place, especially if you're the one holding the arrow. Because like I've been in those situations where like I'm the one that in order to get this right, I'm holding that arrow and trying to shoot the photo. Um uh and then you're trying to balance the cosplayer in the frame and that the last thing on your mind is, trying to nail focus, and then you're just like, oh, this freaking line of this stupid background came in the shot. I wasn't even looking at it. I wasn't paying attention. You don't even notice it until you get home from the con, and that stuff freaking sucks. So I feel you there. So, um, it it takes a lot of training of your eye and kind of like mentally forcing yourself to go through like a checklist of things to make sure that your image is what you want it to be. And I mean, I still screw up at that kind of stuff all the time, especially at cons. Because like you're trying to, especially like if you're at a con and like that's the background. Maybe if you had this shot, but you had it like moved to the left a little bit, there's a bunch of people. So you're framing this so specifically to not get people in the shot. That's like me at that was like anytime I'm shooting inside at Katsucon, like I feel like all the angles have to be picked very specifically because if you don't pick that angle, you're getting people in the background, which absolutely ruins the photo. So the struggle is real, is what I'm trying to say. uh, uh, Evan made a comment about the hair obscuring the eyes and that not really being the photographer's fault. And yeah, I'd agree with that. Like, but at the same time, I'm kind of going like, I wish I could see a bit more of the eye. Um, and maybe if you don't know the cosplayer very well, yeah, you'd be more hesitant to make a comment on this. But if you do know them, even just a little bit, I wouldn't be hesitant, really, for me ever, to ask a cosplayer to like adjust their bangs or, you know, to move it a little bit, to help you better get what you're looking for in the shot. Um, I think most of the time, even if they don't want to do it, because that's the look of the cosplay. The, the cosplayer is not going to take offense to that. They're just gonna be like, probably not, unless you like hit on like the one cosplayer that just is the worst. um. So yeah, I don't know if it especially bothers me here, but it is something that I kind of would like to see a bit more of. But like, I think the biggest thing to me here, and moving forward where you can glean from this image, is the concept is really solid. So like, knowing that if you get a character with a bow again and they've got a nice looking arrow, you can jump off this uh this idea and do it again. Like, I think that's something that I struggle with. Is when I take a photo, I try to not repeat that kind of exact same concept again. But sometimes that's just, you're forcing yourself too hard to avoid what's going to look good. So, what I'm trying to say with this is, don't avoid trying to do another shot like this just because you've shot this shot like this. I think there's marked areas for improvement for the shot, and even though like it is such a photo based so much off the concept, that maybe like if you're like me, you're like, well, I already did this concept, so I'm just dragging up an old idea. I would still go, no, you. There's a lot of room for growth in this concept and shot, so delving back into it could be really useful. Okay, let's see. We've got three more photos to go through, so I'll jump into the next one here. This one is from Maddie, or Maho Maddie Cosplay. Um, this is it's this is one of those times where like portrait uh style shots, I think, are not overly interesting for cosplay necessarily, because like it's let me rephrase that. Portrait style shots, these three-quarter shots, are not all that interesting in terms of cosplay photography, because there's not a lot of room to for the photography to be creative. And I'm not trying to, that's not bashing on this image. It's just kind of setting the stage for it, because like, you're not doing a lot of incorporating in the background. It's and you're really focusing on the person. And like, for some people, as a cosplayer, that can be the best kind of image, because like you're not making the background the focus. It is all about the cosplayer. It is all about their look, their craft, what they've spent time on. And what I'm getting at is, with this image, that's where this really excels. Like, it is super solid. The lighting is great. Um, the pose is solid. Um, the background is totally unobtrusive. And fits, if maybe isn't wonderful, but it fits well with what's going on in the image. Um, that I feel pretty solid about this, and that wasn't the whole thing. Like, it's not wonderful, but it fits well with what's going. Damn it. Sorry for that bit of echo there. Um, all that said, you know, I'd love to see kind of this is an excellent execution of the foundations of photography, where you've got um, the lighting's nailed, that you've got really nice soft lighting on the model. Like, this use of natural light is really, really flattering. But it's maybe not the as a photographer, and once again, I'm coming from this mentality as a photographer. Like, I want to see more. I want to see this kind of pushed further, because like it does just kind of feel almost a bit too standard of a shot, if that makes sense. And this is me not trying to be mean to this photographer or about this photo, but just like, man, I feel like you with this image, I see that the foundations of your photography work are really there, so I'd love to see them explored. Um, some like nitpicky things about this image, which there I feel like there isn't much, because I don't have too much to negative to say about the image overall, is something I talked about earlier. The shape of the wig, I think like you could liquefy it to make it just feel a bit more natural. Um, the color of the face of the cosplayer versus the neck feels a little bit different, so I might try and like balance those two out and like darken the neck a little bit. Just kind of bring like a bit more separation between the neck and this area. I really like the color toning. It works well for the cool feeling of this image, with kind of the leafless trees in the background. Um, yeah, it's a solid image. I don't know if I have anything more to add. This is where I wish I had Sarah back in here. But yeah, Maho Maddie, I want to see you submit again, and I want to see something where I feel like you're trying to push it a little bit more. I do think you've got the those, based on this image alone and not knowing any of your other photography work. This one is super solid, and I think you've got the basis down, and I want to see you taken further. That's all I'll say. So let's move on to this next shot from Matthew Jenkins. Yeah, drink of water. Okay. So, overall, I really dig this shot. It's got such a lovely softness about it. And just a lovely uh cleanness. Um, but that's not to say I don't think there's some areas where I think you could really kind of up the ante with this shot. Um, something kind of knowing um the background of how this shot was taken. Um, I kind of feel like uh so I know Matt shot this with strobes using ND filters, and I can't help but feel like those ND filters are maybe softening the image a bit much. Like, her face, I feel like we're losing some detail there, and like maybe there's just some like micro contrast you can add in with some curves layers on her face to kind of make it feel like there's a bit more detail there, but I do feel like it's just a bit of softness there that I feel like the shot should be a little bit sharper. But I suppose I'm jumping into the a real deep critique right away. Um, Pose wise, I feel like I'm a little bit turned around with her pose. What I mean by that is her head is facing to the right. I feel like her torso's pointed to the left, but then I look at her feet and they look like they're coming straight at me. Um, it's just there's nothing about it that particularly screams like, "Oh my god, this is totally unnatural." But like there's just a little bit about that that feels odd. Um Maybe if like her toes were pointed to the left to feel in line with her body, that my brain would reconcile all of this a little bit better. Um I also think I'd like to see a bit more leaning into the color toning on this shot. And specifically, what I mean by that is the greens. Um, God, we've got such lovely pinks in this shot. Like the colors of that are just really, really nice. Um, like to see the greens played with a bit more to complement those pinks. Um, I don't necessarily know where you take them because I think a deep color doesn't work well with this, but like I kind of feel like they need to be played around with a bit more. Also, in terms of the background, there's a couple areas that I would fix. There's this like pole that like if you go straight up from her head and through the parasol, there was like a pole or a tree that's right located directly behind her. I would Photoshop that out. Um, Also, it's just a teeny area to let me see, screen share and show you guys. It's just this blotch right here that I feel is calling a bit of attention to it because we've got these kind of lines that are coming in here, 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 and here that kind of make this like weird star. Um, that also draw my eye into that one spot. It's just kind of a weird coincidence that that ends up happening, but I think like just like cleaning that up a little bit removes any distraction my eye has in this image and just really really helps clean it up. I love the overall balance of the lighting in this shot. I would have no idea, I think, that this shot was strobed without knowing that beforehand. And I say that paying this shot a big compliment because I do think just like it gives such a lovely softness and like if you look at her eyes that like this is what I'm talking about with this catch light in her eyes when I talk about kind of how that catch lights can really give an anime feel to a shot. How big these catch lights are in her eyes just really even from far away just makes her eyes feel bigger and brighter and it's a really nice look. um Not sure if I have any other comments on this one because it's a super solid shot. I think my biggest area is I'd like to see the greens taken somewhere else. This photo, I don't know where, but so that shows how helpful I'm being. But yeah, okay. I think we are going to be on to the last photo of this set, which is from uh Silne or blep photography. Um Pull it up on my screen and take a sip of water. Okay. I right off the bat love the location of this shot. It is really pretty and works really well with the cosplay. Uh, it's like one of those things like I don't know where this is shot, but I am almost certain this is a locations shoot, which it just reminds me of how like how more powerful location shoots can be than at cons. Uh, oh, back on that previous image, Matt commented, I too dislike the greens, but I have no clue what to do with them. Well, that makes two of us. Sorry, I couldn't help with anything specific in that. But uh, back to this shot by Silne. Um, that said, I think this image or this location could be worked with a little bit better. Um, Really, what's appealing about this location is that like waterfall with like the red leaves above it and just kind of that area next to it. I think the area above, directly above the cosplayer with the like pine that's I think that's some sort of conifer that's coming down towards the ground is not overly great looking. Um and then even like to the left of the cosplayer you see like some plants that have been pruned. It looks like they were cut probably before fall or something like that. And uh that also kind of necessarily a great look. So, um yeah. Sorry, commenting back on Matt. The shoot was for an artist sponsorship, so the main focus was the colors and the texture, which is funny because my wife ordered from Arta recently, and I got a photo from this set in as one of the postcards in that. So I thought that was funny seeing that come with the photo from the set being also in the critique. I just thought that was cool. So props on that, Matt. Uh, Back to Silne. I'm sorry, Silne. I don't mean to keep on getting so distracted. um, so some immediate fixes I think you could do is move the cosplayer just a little bit closer to the small water feature. Um, Angle the shot a little bit more so that you're getting less of what's directly behind her and more of what would be to the right of the frame. Also, I would consider like even just as a fix for this image, I think if you give this a 16:9 crop and remove the details above her that don't really add much to the shot, I think it helps. I'll screen share. I did a quick crop just to kind of show what I'm thinking. Like just I think that alone helps by removing that extra information that's just really not helping the shot. I actually think that actually looks a fair amount better. Um but let's continue. The lighting on her is I think this shot's just a bit overexposed. You're starting to lose some detail of like the flower print on her chest, and her face is just a little bit overexposed. So I might you know, I think that information might be gone from the photo original like when you took it, so which maybe you can't save in post. But if you could maybe tone it down a little bit in post, but uh, in retrospect, maybe try and shoot a couple images underexposed as well, or at least what you think might be underexposed at the time. Because then that's something I try to do is I try to take a couple images maybe brighter than I think and a couple images darker than I think if I have the time to do that. Because sometimes I'll find out that, like, oh, I was clipping here in the highlights or, it was too dark in the shadows. So instead of having to bump the shot up or darken the shot in post, I can just go to the shot that I feel matches the look that I actually want. So this one, I think if you just took a couple like little bit less bright shots, it'd help. Color wise, and I think it's just we're getting a bit too much yellow and browns, and we're kind of it makes the image feel a little bit muddy. There's a lot of color information going on, especially in the reds, oranges, and green channels, and I think it's maybe a bit too much. I don't necessarily know how I'd like thinking about it, how I'd clean up this image. Like, oftentimes when I am working on an image, what I personally do is I will I, I will try to make the image as clean of a color correction as possible before I start doing any color work. Um so that's like my baseline, just trying to get it to look really, really clean and nice. And then from there, I will add the color toning. Um so like if I were to approach this image, I think that's what I do is really kind of work on getting the um colors cleaned up, because then that would help me, I think, figure out where I'd want to take the color of the shot. Um like I can tell there's kind of that like goal of having it being very excuse me, sepia toned, or kind of that almost like warm fall nostalgic style. But I think it's just it's it's left a lot of since there's so much color information in this shot to begin with, I think it's just kind of left the colors feeling muddy overall, um which I think kind of hurts the shot. I As I'm talking, and I'll just screen share. This kind of gives it a, since it's just me, I can be a little bit more personal to how I go about things. Like once I'm in Photoshop, um, I'm like literally just in adjustment layers, playing around with sliders, and I just try to trust my eye when I'm doing these, um, and then once I'm done, I will toggle it on and off, and then consider whether I have massively borked things or if I've actually improved things. And lots of these sliders, like, it's hard to see what you're doing, so I will like wiggle them back and forth to the extreme, so that I can kind of see those changes, and then I slowly narrow it down to where the spot feels natural. So like I did that. Now I'm like toggle on. Do I feel like what I did helped the image or hurt the image? I think like that helped. I think my biggest thing, like, this is super quick and dirty, but like, just brings a little bit more God, of a cleaner color. What's also making the image look so kind of with that muddy color is like, if I bring up the histogram in here, we've got like so much mid-tone information. Like you can see like from almost across the entire image, it's like the values are about the same level. And that makes it kind of hard to discern what we're looking at. So that is also part of what's hurting this image. And maybe something you could do with this image is try and make it so the background has less contrast in it. And you could use like curve adjustment layers and like mask out the cosplayer if you're feeling like going the extra mile. That's normally what I do on most of my shots is I'll mask out the cosplayer and edit the background and the cosplayer separate from each other. But then after I have that kind of cleaner look, I will then add the color in. Do I even though I've spent like so much time like nitpicking this shot, I do really enjoy it overall. I think it the overall mood feels really nice to the shot. It's a really lovely feel, and I think it works really well. And with that, that was the last photo that I had in this critique set. For those people watching, if you want to have your photo in for the next critique, you can submit now at, gosh, is it submissions.photography.com? I think that is it. And it should be pretty simple. If you are having problems submitting through that, just message me and I will get yours added. Some people have had problems with submissions lately, and I think it has to do with it being a bit of like a login problem. I'm not really sure, but yeah. I had a friend who built me the uploader for the submissions form, so yeah, it can be hard. Yeah, it's submissions.photography.com. Here I will see if I can. Yeah. So I know we had a long break between this critique and the last one being in September, I think towards the end. Like I said at the opening, life has been crazy and busy for me, so I didn't really have time to focus on doing any of these critiques. That said, now that hopefully a bit of that craziness is past, I'll be able to move on to doing these a bit more often. I need to talk it over with Sarah if we can manage to fit another one in, but I think with the holidays and me having some days off of work, I should have time to maybe do another critique later this month. So to make up for kind of our lack of doing these, maybe you'll be able to get 2 this month. So let me know if you're interested in seeing another one of these soon. I can't give any specific dates because I really don't know, but I would say I would aim maybe like the week after Christmas and before New Year's, but I don't really know, so we'll see about that. As always, if we critiqued your image and you want to go back and do any re-editing based on what Sarah and I have said, we think that's freaking awesome and we'd love to see that. So either message us or tag us in those shots and we'll take a look at them. Anything else? Yeah, I don't know. Hopefully this next stream that we have, we'll try and get a next guest, another guest on it. The first guest we had was Mallow 2 episodes ago. And we're going to try and keep on rotating through guests. So that was my original idea with this kind of critique stream is once Sarah and I had established it, we'd get a third rotating photographer in to critique every week. But turns out that adding a third person dramatically increases the amount of effort I have to go through with setup and with scheduling. So I'm gonna try for a third person this night for the next episode, but I can make no guarantees. I hope you guys enjoy this. I'd love to hear your feedback. Even if it's simple of like I like this or I don't like this. I really hope everyone enjoys that watches this, and I know I'm probably going long-winded with all of this shit, but uh if no one was watching, we wouldn't do these and it'd be super boring. So for everyone involved. So thanks for being here, especially for those of you who were live and commenting. I'm sorry if I missed your comments. Facebook has been sucking. I may try to stream to Twitch in the future. We'll see about that. It's kind of hard because both Sarah and I, all of our audience exists already on Facebook, so I don't necessarily know if I want to splinter that. But that's that thought for another time. Um, David just commented, "I love these. Please do more. Sorry I missed it." Uh, we will. All of these are uploaded on my Facebook and will remain uploaded. I did not upload episode 4 yet on YouTube because I was dumb and busy, but that one will be up on YouTube, and I didn't screw up this time in the recording process, so this one will be easy to upload to YouTube too. So that this will be recorded in higher quality than what Facebook has on YouTube, and it will not have any of the dropouts because it's recording directly to my hard drive. So awesome. Thank you all again, and have an awesome evening.